Cool. And just so you know that there is a transcription for any of you who want to follow along via subtitles. So cool, guys. I think we're done with intros. If anyone else has not introed themselves, feel free to post it in the chat. And otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. I will give it to Michelle, and we will get going.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right, so let's go ahead and get with the presentation. And so, yeah, today we're talking about our bootcamp, specifically our full stack web development bootcamp. So as we saw a couple of people showing in their introduction, breaking into tech can be a bit challenging, but there is a variety of work. Some of you are software engineers, some of you have experience in graphic design. So tech does have that variety as well. It's a global industry. We have some people that are from California. We have some people that are from Oklahoma. And so these demands are everywhere, right? Though the market may not be specifically somewhere, they are more concentrated in other areas. And anyone can learn, given enough time and practice, anyone can learn to program and to create beautiful web pages. Tech also gives us a great work-life balance. So what kind of jobs can we get in tech? It's seemingly limitless, as you can see from this list. This list barely scrapes the top of the iceberg, right? You got full stack web developer, you got JavaScript developer, Python developer, software engineer, quality assurance. So there's a lot of roles that you can take on with just a skill set that you learn one time and you keep building up on that. You can make a lot of money starting out. Usually we start out, I believe right now it's around $80,000 starting out maybe, but you can build up and get potentially a 100K figure or more salary. Even if the starting salary is below 6 figures, tech industries give you a lot of upward mobility, and so you can escalate that salary pretty quickly. So what does the Skillspire Coding Bootcamp offer? We have a syllabus and structure that allows for fast learning and self-teaching. And we also have people which you can build your network. You have instructors that are industry professionals trained to teach and be passionate at work, and those of us who have a lot of experience in education and are able to help you understand problems and take maybe a different perspective on material that you've already learned or attempted to learn on your own through self-study. So how are we different from a university? Maybe Faiz can help me out on this slide.
Absolutely. So this is a common question that people come with a lot, and it's a very valid question for someone coming in. And I just want to kind of preface by saying that there is not really a right or a wrong answer. It's context dependent, depends on your situation, your current level, your status, what opportunities do you have. For example, if you're someone who's been offered a full scholarship at university to do computer science, that might be your best option if it's being paid for you, and you can afford to wait for a few years before you're able to kind of break into the job market. That might be a better option for you. So it really depends. With that being said, there are some key differences, and we just kind of want to go over that. One is that universities can be extremely expensive. If you're familiar with other coding boot camps, you'll probably know that some of the other ones out there are also quite expensive. And that's kind of what separates us, is that we've kind of created our courses and structured them in a way where our goal is to get you from A to Z, meaning beginner to into the industry, in as quickly a manner as possible. And what that means is the way we've structured the curriculum is to really include what you need and not a lot of extra fluff. So when you go to university, you have some theory, you have other courses like not related to computer science or software engineering that you'll be required to take, like English, biology, PE, and you're paying money for these courses. So universities can be extremely expensive. Um, that's one of the biggest things. Taking loans, going to debt. These are all realities of going to university. Um, like I said, many people can't afford to wait 4 years. So if you're someone who you are looking to get into the field, the industry, as quickly as possible, and I would say the majority of our students have been people who are looking to transition. They're not people who are coming straight out of high school. They're people who are working in other industries previously, and their goal is to, transition in as quickly a time frame as possible. And university makes that
Yeah,
quite difficult. You can't really
one of the
blitz.
biggest, don't
Sorry, go
mean to
ahead.
interrupt. One of the biggest things that, yeah, one of the biggest things versus bootcamp university. University, you take 4 years, and technology changes, rapidly. And with the boot camp, you actually go and do the boot camp, and you learn or what it you need. Like it could be Python or something as simple as HTML, but it changes with a university 4 years, and then by the time one graduates from 4 years, the technology that you were taught, it may not be obsolete, but there's more newer technology that makes things speed up and better.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Michelle could speak to that better than I could. Um, but that's one of the things that get with like a program like ours is you're learning and being mentored by people who are currently working in industry, um, and they're very up to date on current technologies, the landscape of the job market, what companies are looking for, what they're not looking for. These are all benefits of working and being mentored by people on a very personal level, which a lot of times you don't get so much at university, especially if you have professors who have not been working in the industry like of late. Um, so that's definitely a valid point. Um, and so, like I mentioned, we remove a lot of the theoretical knowledge and focus on the technical concepts. That's really what a big part of what allows us to kind of go through the program in a relatively short period of time, 4 or 5 months, depending on which course. And then a very important point, of course, we help you with the technical training, um, but we also help you with resume building, LinkedIn profile building, technical interview preparation, and then job searching. So um, we do have a guaranteed internship program, which is something we introduced fairly recently. And basically, what it is once you're done with a course, uh, you're guaranteed, at the very least, to be put into a internship program. And the reason why this is so significant is because one of the biggest things is when you take a course, um, you're not taking the course usually for the sole purpose of taking the course. The goal of taking the course is you want to use that as a means of breaking into a new career with that knowledge. And we basically guarantee you that. We've had like I think a few rounds of cohorts of students of late who have gone through um, this guaranteed internship program, and from what we've heard so far, they're loving it. Um, with that being said, if you get a job after the course, you're not obligated to take the internship. The internship is really to help you guys out and give you like a launching pad for your career. We've had students who got jobs straight away and they went into the job. That's completely fine. The internship is for you guys, so you can take it or you can leave it, but it's really to benefit you and give you experience, hands-on, on-the-job experience, learning from an industry expert who currently works at Microsoft. You'll be working underneath him, and you'll be mentored by him, and it'll give you like that kind of from a resume perspective, the experience, yes, but also the hands-on, on-the-job experience that you really need when you've now gone through the course, you have new knowledge and skills, but you need to apply that. You need to use it on a day-to-day basis, and you need to learn how things go in an actual tech environment on the job. So I see a question. Is it possible to receive a recording of today's course? I'd also like to be put on the email list for future events from SkillsFire. I'm also open to networking. Yes, absolutely. Everyone in here will receive the recording as long as you have your email. So depending on where you came from, whether it was Facebook, Instagram, or Meetup, we should have your contact info. If not, then be sure to put your email in the chat, and we will follow up with the recording. So yes, what Jennifer said, would love if we could get a recording. Yes, absolutely. So anyone who'd like the recording, feel free to put your email in the chat, and we will send that over to you after the workshop. Does anyone have any questions? I just want to pause for a second. Any questions so far about the industry, about the job market, salaries, things like that?
Hi, this is Jennifer. I do have a question regarding technical requirements for hardware for learning. This is embarrassing, but yeah, I'm working on a laptop that's about 11 years old. It's a MacBook, and that's what I've got, and my phone. So, I mean, is realistically, is that enough to get started, or do I need to invest in something more pretty soon?
So I think I can answer this question, Faiz. I would say that that's okay. If you have no issues with your laptop running, if there's no issues on like startup, maybe it's a little slow, but HTML, CSS, and full stack web development, especially with the technology that we're gonna use, isn't too intense on the device. So that should be okay.
So in my experience, I do apologize for keeping interrupting. It's software. So with Mac, I had Adobe CS full, and so when I upgraded my iOS, it wasn't compatible any longer. So it just depends on software, what you're going to use or what you need to use to do your projects. And so I had to go on to the cloud with Adobe to use the products now. And now they're actually forcing one to pay monthly fees versus before you pay like $12,000 for the entire CS, and then all of a sudden now I couldn't use it anymore. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to step, but to answer that question, perhaps maybe you guys more experts than I am, but it just depends on the software that needs to be used on that particular machine, laptop to use. And yes, sorry.
Yes, that is correct, though. It does depend on the software, but the ones that we will be using shouldn't be so intensive as Adobe Photoshop. Yeah, that is quite an intensive software that I do have as well.
Oh, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I was also concerned if I needed more than one monitor because it's I think a 12 or 13-inch laptop, so the view is not amazing, and only being limited to one screen. Just wanted to make sure that wasn't going to be a limitation as well. But I am running a fairly current OS, so I'm going to be doing what I can, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one monitor should be fine. Yeah, sounds great.
Cool. Jennifer, I hope that answers your question. Let me know if you have any other questions. More than happy to answer. Let's see, another question. Which tech companies that hire graduates from SkillsFire bootcamp programs? If so, what is the hiring rates at? Sorry, I joined late if you already covered this question. So, of course, great question. I believe, if I remember correctly, looking at our data historically, it's been around 70%. And I want to add a disclaimer that includes people who are placed into internships, apprenticeships, jobs. So that's paid, unpaid internships, the whole 9 yards. So our goal is to get you in, and we don't make any guarantees. Obviously, we're not saying that if you join our program, you will absolutely get a job or even an internship. well, we do have the guaranteed internship program now, but back then we did not. So we will guarantee you an internship. We do not guarantee jobs. We do not guarantee salaries. We don't guarantee long-term success. Our students who have been successful are the ones who come in and really hustle and take initiative. We give you all the tools and resources in terms of instruction, mentorship, guidance, and resources. But the students who really do well are the ones who kind of take advantage and, they're in the class asking questions, working on their projects on the side, their homework, and also just studying a lot as well on the side. If you're struggling to grasp the concepts, you're going to have to put in a lot of hours on the side. I think Michelle can speak to this better than I could, but if I know one of our instructors up here, who has done some workshops in the past. He likes to talk about his story. It's very interesting, because he talks about how it was just so hard for him to pick these skills up. And he was literally just sitting in front of the computer like all day, just trying to learn how to do this. And he did not take the college route. He went the coding bootcamp route, and he was just chomping away at the computer. And he talked about how it did not come easy to him. So for those of you who are wondering, like, people in tech, like, it comes easy to them, that's not necessarily always the case. Sure, there are certainly people who kind of have an affinity and a knack for it a bit more easily, but that does not mean that if you don't, you cannot pick it up. That's certainly not the case. You can absolutely pick it up. You're just going to have to put in the work that it's needed. So, when we talk about the salaries and things like that, or jobs, we, of course, have a guaranteed internship program. So I hope that answers your question. And I think it's roughly 70%. Please don't quote me on that. I think it's around 70%, if I remember correctly, looking at our latest stats in terms of placement rate. That includes everything. So, right. So paid, unpaid, everything. But yeah, to really kind of be successful. And we've had some students, make it into big companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Expedia, T-Mobile, things like that. But to really reach that level, a lot is required on the student's part as well, right? So our job is not to, spoon feed you and do everything for you. Our job is to help you as best as we possibly can and give you all the tools that you need. So I hope that answers your question. So Alex says you may want an external monitor. It would help with productivity. You could have documentation editor open without having to alt tab between them.
I will say it is helpful, but it's not necessary. For a lot of my own education, when I was learning, I was very limited to also a 7-year-old HP laptop. It was quite tiny, so it's not necessary. But once I got a second monitor, it did make the workflow a little better. But yeah, it's up to you and your comfort level.
Cool.
Okay.
Your questions as we go along. By the way, if anyone has any questions, you can interrupt us whenever you want. So I'll let Michelle go through and take it away.
Yeah. So for some of us, though, we can't fully dedicate, we can fully dedicate ourselves to education, right? But we have some stuff on the side that can prevent us from doing so. One of those things could be your job. You don't want to quit your job yet. Well, you don't have to. Our courses are part-time, and they are currently held only on weekday evenings and weekends when people are typically out of work. They are designed for people with full-time jobs. And in case you do miss a class, you can always catch up on the recorded lectures. So all lectures are recorded and you are able to see them afterwards at your own pace. And rewind in case you did have a question and needed a reminder, you can always go back to the recordings for that. Instructors are always available outside of the classroom to help you if you need an additional help. And there are TAs as well to help you out, so that you have this community helping you out, right? And this flexibility to continue your learning while continuing your day-to-day life. So let's start talking a little bit about the technology that we're going to be using. So we do have a couple of text editors that you can use for editing your software, or in this case, creating your web pages, the CSS and the JavaScript. I personally will be using Visual Studio Code. So this is a very popular text editor program for those who are in software and web development. You have other options, however. You can use Atom, and you can use Sublime. I have not used Atom so much, but I have used Sublime a lot. That is a great text editor to give you like a starter. I will say Visual Studio Code is a bit more complicated, but it is something that you can pick up easily with enough practice. Sublime is a little easier to use than Visual Studio Code, and it works perfectly with web development if Visual Studio Code is not to your taste.
Yeah, I don't mean to keep interrupting, but I use Atom, and you could actually customize Atom to your likings, versus Visual Studio is straightforward, an editor, and Sublime also the same. But Atom, they actually allow you to, if you're a real hardcore developer and you know code, you could actually modify Atom as the way you want it to work for your flavor.
Yeah, so many options out here.
So we have one question I just want to go over real quick. So someone asks, do your courses offer professional certifications recognized by most top tech companies out there? Yes, so you will absolutely get a certification. When you say professional certifications, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by professional certifications. You'll get a certification that you've completed the program. And when you say recognized by most top tech companies out there, so the thing about this is that if you're asking for something that's I'm assuming you mean like accredited, or we are accredited. But if you're asking whether there's like some universal sort of certification that all tech companies abide by and adhere to, that's not really the case. It's more of depending on whether or not the company requires a degree. And if you're kind of familiar with the tech landscape, you'll probably come to know that a lot of tech companies are now kind of pulling back on their previous requirements for a college degree. And so what really kind of comes into play is your knowledge, your skills. When you walk into the interview, what do you come with? What do you have in terms of projects? What can how do you do on the exam, on the technical interview exam? I've known people personally, multiple people who did not have a degree. I knew one person who didn't even do a boot camp. He did the self-study route. And he's been working in tech since 2018. Yeah, 2018. He was previously an entrepreneur, and he went into tech, and he's been there ever since. He's worked at some good companies, Intuit. And so, he was telling me that it was really about the projects that he built, what he was able to show at the interview to his employer. I understand what you're trying to mean by your question. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding there, that there's not necessarily like a certification that's like universally recognized, if that makes sense. It's more about kind of, does the company require a degree? If not, they're looking at your skills, your knowledge, your projects. What do you have to offer? And maybe Michelle, if you want to add to that, I don't know, from your experience, what do you think?
Yeah, I will definitely say it's more skill set. That's what companies are looking for. They're looking for your skills, rather than whether it's a degree, self-taught, or boot camp. What they want to see is that you know what you're doing and ways in which you apply solutions to their problems. That comes with practice, not so much with certification or a degree. It comes with practice. Yeah. All right. So we're good to go. Let's talk a bit about what the World Wide Web is. So the internet is a collection of pages, really. They're a collection of documents which we call websites. And so the World Wide Web is just a way to connect these websites together and to jump around to the site that we would like. We have clients, which is a web user's internet connected device to its browsers. And we have servers which store these pages or applications so that a client can get to a server and retrieve the web page that they are looking for. And so this is the request response cycle. This is a bit more of detail onto how the World Wide Web works in general. You have a search. So most of us who have used web browsers, we see that there's a little search at the very top. And so we are searching for, when we search for a site, we're actually searching for an IP address, which for us looks like a URL link. So the browser sends the request to a server, and then that server retrieves the web page for us and displays it on our monitor. So browsers will assemble the data packets into a website, and not just the data and the page itself, but also the code or the programming that's on the back end of that web page, and that will change the behavior of that web page depending on how you as the user interact with it.
Can you show a sample of that?
Not currently. I don't have something that I could just pull out in terms of like web pages. So, but yeah, not currently. I guess the best example of that would be just you taking a look. For example, I'm going to use the Chrome web browser. If you are opening any page, so if you're searching up any page, just even Google, and then you're doing what is a right-click action on any part of the web page and put inspect, the web page itself will pull up. And if you explore that, it's called a developer window a little more, you're going to see eventually some of the code that goes on into that web page. And so we do teach you, however, you are going to see plenty of examples of that throughout the course. With full stack web development, you're being taught exactly that process. What goes into designing the web page, what goes into defining the behavior of that web page, and how to retrieve that information. So hopefully that answers your question. So no, I don't have an example that I could pull up like right now. But does that kind of answer your question? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, full stack actually refers to the technologies used in a stack. So a full stack developer builds the web application, so the web page itself. So what we see, we call the front end, the back end, which is the programming that goes into changing the behavior of the web page, and the database, which is where we store all the information regarding our web page. Some examples of the database, there's many that we can use. There is SQL. I believe our course is going to be using MongoDB. There's Redis, there's also Firebase. So you're not just limited to one database to use for your backend design. Similarly, you're not limited to how you design your front end. So let's take a look at that right now. So speaking of that, we use React and Python. We can use both of these or one or the other to display our front end and specifically for Python backend. So React is a framework. So let's talk about that a bit. So a platform for developing software applications is a framework. So we are taking pre-designed sets of code that have been created by other people, and we're using them in our own application to create our own websites. React, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, is a lightweight front-end framework, and it is rapidly growing in popularity. I have seen a lot of React just kind of explode in the last even 3 years. The reason for this is because it's used by a lot of popular pages and companies such as Facebook, Amazon, Pinterest, Shopify, Uber, Airbnb. So it's everywhere. And it's also open source, meaning that you don't have to pay for it. There is a big community around React in which you can look at their pre-built components. So it's not usually the company itself making these components, it's other people as well, other software and web developers, and they can share these components with you to use in your own web pages. So it also makes not only making a website easier, it also makes it faster because you're using pre-made code to create your own information. So the web fundamentals, the kind of trio that goes with creating a website, is the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So we learn those three things first before we start touching frameworks. So HTML is what goes into creating the front-end design almost. It's the hypertext markup language, and this is how web pages are defined. It creates a structure for the web page, and this is what we use to control the overall layout of our web page. CSS is how we style our web page, how we can make it look pretty or how we can make it look a bit more elegant. If any of you are familiar with, like, maybe I'm kind of showing my age here, but like 90s websites. So if you think of how much the website and the look of websites have changed from like even early 2000s, right? They used to be very blocky. How would I say? Very blocky, very, a lot of people use like basic fonts like Times New Roman. Maybe, again, you guys don't know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you do. But in the last, as we've moved on from those websites, you may see that web pages have become more dynamic. They have more design, more color, and they behave in very different ways than they did then. So CSS helps you out a lot with that. But on top of that, what also helps you out is JavaScript. JavaScript adds interactivity and functionality to a web page. So it can handle functions and web page features and change the behavior of your site based on how you interact with that site. So hypertext markup language, again, is used to communicate the content and the structure. We have elements in an HTML page. We call these tags. So these tags are used to define titles, paragraph, text links, and these tags are used, they're not display. They inform the browser of what elements we're using and how to interpret that information and render it correctly to a page. If we go ahead and open a text editor and we can type in HTML, just that alone will start our process of creating a web page. And so text editor, we talked a little bit about them, Sublime, Atom, and Visual Studio Code, but you could do a web page in something as simple as like Notepad as well. So some sources that can kind of get you started and give you an idea of what HTML is and how to work with it. W3 Schools is a very popular site to go to. You also have HTML Validator and Stack Overflow. So W3 Schools is more like tutorials and information regarding web pages and HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Whereas Stack Overflow is a page that is used by a lot of not just full stack developers, but software engineers and software developers as a whole. It can help you ask questions regarding your code and receive answers from everyone from all sorts of skills levels. It's a very good place to go to for references. And if you have any questions regarding your code or some strange anomalies that can occur when you are programming. CSS is not a programming language, so we can talk a bit about that. So HTML and CSS and JavaScript, all of these create the web page itself. But CSS is not a programming language. It's just simply used for styling the web page and giving it a different look, depending on what you ask it to do. It can be extended using Bootstrap, Materialize, and Sass/Less. Bootstrap is very popular. It gives you, again, kind of like React, it gives you a predefined set of code to create these beautiful web pages by simply importing their information from someone that has already created this styling for you. Now, JavaScript is the programming language that we're going to use. As far as I'm aware, it is the most popular programming language, and that's because it's very powerful and easy. It can be easy to use and start off with. There is no need to install JavaScript. If you have a web browser, that's already running JavaScript for you. And we're going to be mostly using it on a desktop, but you can run JavaScript on a mobile device. So it's very versatile as well. So we can use JavaScript to manipulate our web page as well. So, and change the design of it. It's super powerful, and I'm excited to show you what it can do. So algorithms and data structures, this is the more technical side of creating a web page, right? And algorithms and data structures aren't just limited to creating websites and full stack web development. They're used in almost all aspects of software development and software engineering and web apps. So here are a couple of links that you can visit to get you started and to give you an idea of what algorithms are. Algorithms may be a word that you're already familiar with. If anyone uses like social media apps, you may have heard people talk about the algorithm as it is some mysterious force that dictates how our app behaves. But really, it's a set of instructions that are used to control the flow of our program. So sometimes in interviews, you can come across some interview questions that will ask you to try to solve a problem using an algorithm. And so down here, you have 3 links where you could go and practice that. And so, Faiz, if you could help me out on this slide, that would be great.
Absolutely. So if you're familiar with other boot camps, you know, you're probably asking some questions in terms of what makes us different or unique or separates us. And it's very valid, kind of going back to the college point. You want to know what your options are and what's the best course of action for you to take. So usually we have people in our workshops who have attended other boot camps. So if you do, feel free to provide your 2 cents as well. But I'm just going to kind of touch on some points that, you know, where we feel that we're different. First one is affordability. So I touched on this for the college one, and it's definitely the case relative to other boot camps as well. So it's not uncommon to see other boot camps that are $10,000, $20,000 for the program. And so our courses are priced anywhere from between $3,000 to about $7,000, $3,000 to $7,000 roughly. I say roughly because we have different scholarships and discounts, GI Bill benefits for veterans. We have different payment plans. So if you are not wanting to pay tuition upfront, we can create monthly plans for you, which we've had a lot of students do. You know, so we're able to create a plan that works for you, and you can pay on a monthly basis, depending on that monthly structure is kind of up for, I guess, creation. So it's not like we have a rigid structure like here it is. It's more like, you know, you can talk with us and we'll work with you to figure out something that works for you. So, but the biggest point here is significantly more affordable. Mentorship and community. So this is a huge one. Not only are you learning from industry experts, being mentored by them, growing with them, being able to ask them questions, you have our career support development team as well. So they're going to be helping you with everything related to, you know, searching for a job, LinkedIn resume, like I mentioned. You're going to get like access to a whole community. So with even like within your classroom, I know I'm aware that some boot camps, they do give you like pre-recorded videos and a TA, and basically you take the videos and watch them, and then you ask questions to the TA, which is not at all what we do. What we do is your instruction is live, 100% live, with the instructor on Microsoft Teams with your classmates as well. So, you know, I think we have one of our instructors, Nitin, and he like hangs out with his he's taught several cohorts with us in the past, and you know, after the cohort, I think he's now like good friends with like a few of the students, and they hang out like on the side. So that's pretty cool. That's just one example, but you know, I mean, we've had former students come back and do some of these workshops for us. You know, we just have like a very tight-knit community. Our CEO Yasmin, she I believe she's spoken with every single student on a one-on-one personal level, which I don't know how many CEOs can say that. So kind of in every single aspect, when it comes to mentorship, we have like the leadership, the instruction to help you, and then also community, your classmates, us, you can lean on us. It's really just kind of every single community and mentorship in every single aspect, if that makes sense. It's not limited to just career mentors or just, teachers. It's just like overall, and then no massive classroom sizes. So one of the things that people talk about with other programs is that they don't get enough individual attention. And that's an issue because when you have questions, when issues arise, and they will, you need help like right then and there to sort out whatever it is that you need help with. And having smaller classroom sizes helps a great deal with that because you have your instructor and your TA, and you get more individual focus and attention. So feel free to move on to the next slide, Michelle.
So that is the end of the presentation.
Cool. Does anyone have any questions? So typically what we do at the end is we open the floor up for all of you guys to ask away any and all questions about the industry, jobs, salaries. Our goal is to help you out, as I mentioned in the beginning. We want to help you out however we can, whether or not you're planning on going with our program or someone else's or you're self-studying, doesn't matter. We want to help you guys out. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me or Michelle, and we will answer away. So Kara says, I noticed there are 2 full stack programs. Should I attend one over the other or both? So it's not necessary that you do both. So I think you're referring to the React one, the Mern one, or the Python one. People do one or the other, and it's really just kind of depending on which area of focus you want to go into. In both of them, you'll go into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's just that one of them has React as the framework of emphasis, whereas in the other one, Python is where you'll kind of focus on a little bit more on the back end. So you don't have to do both, because if you do one, like you'll get most of what the other one teaches as well, with the exception of that one main difference, which is React versus Python. So I hope that answers your question. I think a better way to go about it, if you were going to do 2, is to do full stack and then maybe C# or Java. So you can kind of focus on the back end and scrape that up. But yeah, you wouldn't have to do both full stack programs, if that makes sense. Thank you. Yep, absolutely. So guys, if you haven't already, feel free to put your email into the chat. We'll keep you up to date on future events just like this one. And also, we'll be sending out the recording to everyone here. So if you want in on that, then feel free to post your email in the chat. I'm curious if most full stack web developers are freelancers. So that's a very good question. I'll give my 2 cents and then I'll hand it off to Michelle, who can probably speak to this better than I could. I wouldn't say most full stack developers are freelancers. What I would say is that when you get into full stack web development, you kind of open yourself up to a lot of different options. Your potential landscape for career opportunities is very vast and wide, and it kind of encompasses a lot of different types of work setups and opportunities. And what I mean by that is that you're not limited to your standard 9-to-5 job. You can be an entrepreneur, you can be a contractor, you can absolutely do freelancing. You have a lot of control in terms of, and another thing I would mention is that I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and he's a software engineer, and he was talking about how software engineers and web developers and companies, they have a lot of respect. And why that's important is because companies, not only do they pay their developers and software engineers a lot, but they realize that because they command a lot of respect, and because the landscape for career opportunities is so vast, and there are lots of job opportunities. People who work for these companies, they're not necessarily obligated to remain with the company. In other words, the employee has a lot of leverage. And what this means is that companies are afraid to kind of overwork their engineers. I'm not saying that's universal across all companies. Don't get me wrong. I know there are companies that are notorious for kind of overworking. But what I'm saying is that there are a lot of different opportunities. So you don't have to work for a big tech company. You can work for a mid-sized company, a smaller company. And there's also a misconception that I think to get a big salary, it has to be for a large company, which is not always true. And so, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, they're not, I wouldn't say they're most. By most, I'm assuming you mean majority. I wouldn't say majority of them are freelancers. I don't think that's true. But if you want to go that route, you'll certainly have a lot of opportunities. And Michelle, I think you can add to that.
I mean, I think you articulated it perfectly, Faiz. Very much like he said, I wouldn't say most of them are. I would say that a lot of them could be if they chose to. Again, because you have that skill set, being a full stack web developer, you're not it's in the word, right? Full stack. You're not learning just one aspect of a job. You're learning almost all the aspects of what it takes to create a website from bottom up. And so you do have the option of being a freelancer, but again, there's that respect with the companies for their developers and wanting to keep them.
Thank you, Michelle. Zach asks a technical question. How much system administration, and he puts in parentheses, managing servers that your code actually runs on, does a full stack developer typically do, or is that generally handled by a different team?
So I would say that's generally handled by a different team. If you're in a company and you're a full stack web developer, that's generally handled by another team. That does not mean that you wouldn't potentially have some part in that, maybe some basic information regarding that. System administration, when you're looking at the server is something that as a full stack web developer, you can learn. It can give you a lot more power over the content of your code. If you're doing a web app, say with a MongoDB or Firebase, those are generally handled by a different team. But you can make a web app where you set up the server on your own and you're maintaining your own database. The reason you may not want to do that is for security reasons, right? So being the person that's also in charge of your server would mean you are the person that has to make sure that there are no threats to your website, that your website doesn't get hijacked, which is very possible to do. If you're just buying a server off the internet and throwing your website on that server, you are open to, I believe it's a DDoS attack, so any attacks that can come through to your server and hijack it. So yeah, generally handled by a different team.
Cool. Zach, I hope that answers your question. Okay, thank you. Absolutely. So AJ asks, I saw there were 2 types of full stack programs on the SkillsPire site. Is there a difference between the full stack and the immersive full stack program? I see on meets the I think that means I see one meets 2 times a week and the other 6 times a week. So, oh yes, that's a very good question. So, yes, there are 2 types. Right now we are, for the most part, most of the cohorts are the immersive full stack. So that one is the 5 times a week program. And the other one we haven't been running of late. We've been focusing more on the immersive because we think that it provides the students with a more holistic experience with more hands-on training. It is more hours, obviously, but we think that's needed, especially for complete beginners who are coming in green. You kind of need those labs, that homework time, that project time, to really solidify and hone in on the skills. And so, yeah, there are 2, but immersive is the one that most of our cohorts are currently running. So I hope that answers your question. Jennifer says, thanks, Faiz and Michelle, for such detailed answers. Absolutely. Zach says, thank you, of course. AJ, thanks, of course. Any other questions, guys? I mean, the floor is yours. Ask away as you wish. I want to do the immersive, but I don't get off work until 5. What should I do? So Kara, are you, what time zone are you in? Because depending on which one you're in, that could work out perfectly for you. Seattle. Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, so just so in case anyone is unaware, SkillsPire is based in Washington, in Seattle, more specifically Bellevue. Right now, of course, all the courses are online, but the company is based in Washington, which means all the times listed on the website are Pacific time. So if we actually created the courses with people like you, Kara, in mind. That's the reason why we have it on weekday evenings and Saturdays. Weekday evenings from 6 to 9, which works perfectly for people who get off at 5. And the reason it's designed this way and structured this way is because the company was founded with a mission to help people, people who haven't always had big representation in tech, people like women, refugees, veterans, immigrants, minorities, and help them get into tech and land lucrative careers. And we realized that when we're looking at this population, a lot of them are already working full time. Most of them, I would say, are working full time. So when you're working a full-time job, you can't just put your life on pause and have courses in the middle of the day, which is exactly why we've structured it. Weekday evenings, 6 to 9 p.m., and then Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And this allows for that flexible schedule where you can continue your full-time job and then also go through the course. Obviously, if you're doing both, we're not going to sugarcoat it. It's going to be a lot of work. But from a time perspective, it can be done. So I hope that answers your question, Kara. AJ asks, what is the difference between a full stack developer and software developer? Is there a difference in pay between the two? I think that's a good question for Michelle.
Yeah, so a full stack developer is working more specifically towards like web and websites, right? Software developer, what you're working as is creating software in general. So if full stack is, for example, say HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, a software developer would more than likely be working with a different technology such as C++, Java. They could work in JavaScript, but it's more likely that you're going to be working with C, C++, C#, Java, those kind of programming languages. And software developer, I would say, deals a lot more with algorithms. So I stated earlier in one of the slides that algorithms is kind of a universal computer tech experience, but software developers more so. So they need a bit more understanding of algorithms and algorithm analysis in order to get their software to work. Their software could become a web app or it could be cloud-based, but it also could be something like a desktop app. Whereas a full stack developer is going to be focusing on web pages, websites, and web apps.
Cool. AJ, I hope that answers your question. So Kara follows up. She said, oh, okay. I thought I've seen that the immersive starts at 5 and I still have to drive home. But you said 6 p.m. Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, so it starts at 6 p.m. On weekdays, and then Saturday will be 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So yeah, that combined with the additional study hours, like I'd mentioned, it's going to be a lot of work. We don't want to set you up with false expectations and kind of, make it seem like it's going to be easy. But we've had people do it before, and that's why we structured it that way, so that people like yourself can go through the program. So absolutely. AJ says thank you. Absolutely. Anyone else have any questions, guys? Please ask away. That's what this section of the workshop is for. Just any and all questions that you have. We urge you, ask away. The floor is literally yours. So I think someone is typing something. Okay, so Jishnu says, if anyone is looking for internships or employment, feel free to share your resume with jishnu.nath@outlook.com. Cool. And for anyone who hasn't already, please post your email in the chat, and we'll add you to our newsletter, and you'll be in the loop for future events just like this one, as well as for other events, promotions, discounts, things like that. So, and you're welcome to unsubscribe at any time if you're no longer interested, but feel free to do that. And I believe we have a cybersecurity workshop next weekend, so that's going to be an interesting one. Cool. So Kara, put your email. So Jennifer asks a question: what's the difference between a software developer and a programmer? And then she says, what resources do you recommend that would be similar to an aptitude test or a placement test for the tech industry? There are so many career options and roles in tech, so what's the best way to determine what I'm best suited for? So I think that's a very good question. I think Michelle can definitely answer the first one and a good part of the second one, and maybe the latter part of the second one I can give my 2 cents as well.
Yeah. So I would say that software developer and program is kind of almost used interchangeably, right? You see that a lot. Software developer is I would say used more formally. So if you're looking at like looking for work, that's usually what you're going for. Programmer, I would say, is a little lower level almost. Software developer is a little more professional. What resources would I recommend for an aptitude test placement? I don't believe there is one test. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But this aptitude placement test will test your almost all aspects of computer science. So I wouldn't say it's specifically for software developing and full stack. It tests you on parts of hardware. It tests you on algorithms. And so I'm not sure if the tech industry is looking at those scores specifically. When they want to see your aptitude and your abilities, they want to see projects. They want to see what projects you have created and what technologies you used for those projects. So that's the way to show your skills to these companies. Before Faiz gives his 2 cents on this, I'd like to just say that maybe the best way for you to see what role you would fit best for it is to create projects and just go with the flow. Try to see where your passion lies with those projects. So maybe I've created small games in the past. I have created websites. I have created mobile apps, and that kind of gave me a feel of where I wanted to place my focus.
Cool. So I'll give my 2 cents coming from a non-technical person. I'll answer, I guess, the last question you posted, which is about career options and roles and determining what you're best suited for. I think Michelle answered it perfectly. I'll just throw in my input as well. But I think don't be afraid to get your feet wet, and we always, whenever people come in, I know our sales team, one of the biggest recommendations we have for them is to just take free courses, online, Udemy, free code camp, YouTube. There's so many resources now that you have at your fingertips that some people can actually just go the complete self-study route all the way. If you have the discipline to do that. I know it's not as easy because you don't have someone holding your hand, but at least for introductory purposes, for the sake of getting your feet wet and just testing around for free. I mean, I wouldn't be afraid to just take free courses, and when you take a free course, see it through to its end. Don't start 5 different free courses and not finish any of them and just be oh, I don't like this is not for me. If you're going to take a free course, see it through to the end and then make a decision whether or not you want to continue. And you can do that for multiple subjects. I know you're correct, there are a lot of options and roles in tech. that would work to your advantage because you're not limited to one little like funnel. You have so many different realms, so many different fields and options. You have front end, you have back end, you have development, engineering, you have data science, data analytics, cybersecurity, UX design, cloud computing. I mean, you have all these different options. And that works to your advantage because if you don't like one or one of them is not to your liking or you can't find a job in one, there's so many others that you can now go to. And it's not like, yes, there is some overlap in terms of skill set, but a lot of them have very unique skill sets. Like our cybersecurity course, is not contingent upon you taking one of our other courses first. You can go straight to our cybersecurity course. Same with data analytics and data science. These does it help if you have some prior technical knowledge? Yes. But you have so many options, and we've had beginners go through cybersecurity. We've had beginners go through like our software engineering courses like Java and C#. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Jennifer. The best way, I think, in my opinion, is to not be afraid to experiment and test and take free courses and spend some time to research and kind of figure it out yourself. Be kind of adventurous on the internet. And I mean, coding, in my opinion, just overall at a very basic level, is probably one of the easier skills in terms of resources. I'm not saying in terms of difficulty. I'm saying in terms of the amount of resources you have available to you. I mean, there's just so many that are just so vast and so wide. So that's my 2 cents on that. AJ says, is there a workshop for data analytics? So it's funny you asked that, AJ. We had one yesterday. So if you would like the recording for that, let me know and I can send that to you. Our next one, I'm not sure when it will be, but if you have your email in the chat, we'll be sure to collect that and you'll be in the loop for when we do have our next one. KD says, thank you for your time in giving this workshop. Absolutely. Kara, there was a data analytics workshop yesterday. They'll probably have more. Yeah, correct. Were you at that one, by the way, Kara? I wasn't there, but I'm just curious to know. Thanks, Kara. Good to know. Absolutely. I've been using Salesforce's this is from Jennifer. I've been using Salesforce's Trailhead platform and have reached Ranger rank. I'm pursuing my first certification, Salesforce admin, but I'm also curious about the future possibilities such as software development roles, business analyst roles, data analytics, etc. It's just overwhelming to determine what to focus on next. Interesting. So, Michelle, any tips, suggestions?
Yeah, I definitely agree. A lot of that can be overwhelming. My suggestion would be a lot of those roles, fortunately, I feel like once you start learning one part, like say programming and like Python, you can actually kind of move around. So like software development roles, data analytics, those give you some give. So once you start learning a programming language, you can go ahead and pursue like a different section of that programming. With business analyst, I think if I'm correct, that's more math than it is like programming. So that could be, something that you can't shift into. But with software development and full stack development too, you can move around. And so if you find that you decide to pursue one path, but later decide to pivot, that's also an option. You're not just stuck in one direction. You can pivot your way around. So hopefully that kind of helps you think of it a little more fluidly and a little less like rigid. You have to do this once you commit to it.
Lupita says, thank you for the workshop. My email. Thank you very much, Lupita. Kara says, yes, I was there. Okay, cool. How'd you enjoy it? I'd be interested to know. And if you don't mind me asking, are you kind of deciding between these two fields, or were you just going kind of out of curiosity? Just kind
of. Can you hear me? This is Kara.
Yes, I can hear
you. So once they started talking about math and probability, they lost me. So that's a no for me. So I think I'm leaning more towards like the full stack. But then since you mentioned the cybersecurity, I was actually going to ask when the next workshop is for that. So it would be between cybersecurity and full stack, but I'm not doing like the math part is a no for me. No.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I think I mentioned cybersecurity. I believe is next weekend. If I remember correctly, I'll double check on that. But if you're in our email thread, you'll be in the loop anyway, so you should be good. But yeah, the math. Michelle, any comments on the math?
So that could be a barrier, like that could feel like a barrier for some students, I feel like. I will say that there is an importance to math in terms of like software development. A certain degree of math and like when you're developing your algorithms and how you're approaching the solutions to your algorithms, that's a bit more technical and more math oriented. Maybe not so much with full stack web development. I, as someone that like loves math, I'm a little biased and would place a little more importance on it. But with full stack web development, I'm not going to say math is not important, because there, in some aspects, you're going to encounter some problems in which it could be important, but it's not as intense as it would be with like data analytics or software development.
Cool. So Jennifer says, I'd like a recording of the data analytics workshop as well. Absolutely, yeah. AJ says, yes, please, for the data. Yes, please, for the data analytics recording. Absolutely. Priya says, thank you. Of course. Jennifer, excellent, very helpful. Absolutely. Any other questions, guys? I know we are winding down here, but any questions? This is your kind of window to take advantage and ask away as you wish. So don't feel shy. No such thing as dumb questions. Anything and everything is welcome. Let us know.
Yeah, I got one more question.
Sure. This is Kara, correct?
Yes, Kara. So if I like decide to go into like full stack and I pay for it, but then I decide to I want to do like another program, it would be too late. Like students can't just like swap into a different class or switch to a different class, right? Or
So I believe we've had students do that before. It's really kind of case by case. I know, I believe, if I remember correctly, someone recently in 2021, end of 2021, they originally were doing data analytics, and I think it wasn't for them. So we allowed them to go into the full stack program instead. So I think it's case by case. You'll have to talk with Yasmin, our CEO, in terms of coming up with a plan to do things like that, or in terms of tuition. There's a lot of flexibility there. So she really kind of likes to bend over backwards to help students with whatever situations they're in financially, or in terms of repeating the course or moving to a different course. So it's something you'll have to talk to her about. So I can't promise you that, but we have had students do that and similar things like that in the past, if I remember correctly. Absolutely. Okay, so I guess this is more for Michelle. What kinds of project management frameworks are most popular in full stack web development? Agile concepts are what I'm familiar with and comfortable with.
I would definitely say agile, definitely. So definitely agile. Trying to think, project management, other ones. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any other ones, but those are the ones that I have mostly worked with, would be agile. I'm sorry, I can't give a lot more detail on that answer, but hopefully that kind of answers it, Jennifer. Since it's so popular, it's used by a lot of companies and in big scale projects and in small scale projects.
Any other questions, guys? I'll be following up, like I'd mentioned, with the recording. But are there any other questions? Okay, so AJ says, thank you, Faith and Michelle. This was a great workshop with helpful info and useful advice. Absolutely. Any other questions, guys? I see someone's typing. Okay, so Jennifer has a question. Is Flash used on more high-end websites, like Blue Origin's website, for example?
So I believe Flash was actually deprecated a couple of years ago. So no, I would say Flash has, yeah, websites no longer use Flash. I assuming you're talking about Flash. It used to be a way to integrate dynamic behavior to websites. So no, I would not say so.
Cool. Any last minute questions, guys? Cool. Well, if no one else has any questions, I just want to say thank you all very much for joining us today on a Saturday. We really hope that it was informative and beneficial for all of you. And regardless of where you are at in your journey towards a new tech career, we wish you the best of luck. If you have any questions ever, I'm posting my email into the chat right now. You can always feel free to email me. I'm also posting a link to our website. And I will also, yeah, I'll post the Yasmin's email as well. Yasmin is our CEO, and feel free to reach out to her as well, and that as well as our generic SkillsPire email. So yeah, but yeah, guys, it was really a pleasure to have you guys here. Thank you, Michelle, for your very thorough presentation, for answering everyone's questions. Thank you all for joining and coming and engaging with us and asking questions. We love it when you guys ask questions. That's the whole purpose of these workshops. So thank you very much, guys. Like I'd mentioned, we have a cybersecurity workshop next weekend. So if you'd like to be in the loop for that, I think all of you guys have already posted your emails, but if you haven't, feel free to post it in the chat. But yeah, that's it for me, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email any of the emails I posted check out our website. And yeah, I'll be following up with the recording. So if you don't have any other questions for me or Michelle, I hope you all have an amazing Saturday, and I wish you all the best of luck in your journey into the tech industry. Zach says, thank you for your time today. Absolutely. Okay. So I think everyone is gone. Cool. So how was it?
Pretty good, I think.
Yeah. I think you did great. I think you did a good job answering everyone's questions, and I think it's a good way to get warmed up for when you teach the course, and you know, getting engaged with the students. Yeah, thanks a lot for doing this, and answering the questions and the presentation and everything. Yeah, when does your cohort start?
It starts May 14th.
May 14th. Okay, so you have a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And thank you so much for your help. You were very helpful. Couldn't have done this without you. Literally.
Absolutely. We'll have the recording here, so if you feel free, if you want to rewatch it, I can send it to you after. Yeah, that's pretty much it from my end. I do have to drop off. I have another call coming up in like 2 minutes, so
yeah,
I will hop off. But if you have any questions, you can always message me on Slack or Teams, or email me. Yeah, thanks a lot, yeah, have an amazing weekend.
You too. Thank you so much. Bye.